Welcome to the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video, where better sleep starts with better understanding. Ever feel like getting a good night's sleep is some kind of mystery you just can't solve? Well, you are definitely not alone. For doctors, figuring out what's really going wrong is like putting together a giant, complex puzzle. It's all about combining your personal story, what they see in a physical exam, and some hard data to build the full picture. So, how do they actually put all those pieces together? Let's dive in. The whole investigation really starts with a few simple but incredibly powerful questions. Are you just constantly tired during the day? Do you snore, like, really loudly? And here's the big one. Has anyone, your partner, a family member, ever seen you actually stop breathing while you were asleep? These questions are the very first clues that point doctors toward a really common condition called obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. These questions are so good, in fact, that they've been turned into an actual screening tool that doctors use all the time. It's called the Stop Bang questionnaire. It's a super quick way for them to get a sense of your risk. Every yes adds a point to your score. And here's the key takeaway. If you answer yes to 3 or more of these, you're considered to be at high risk for obstructive sleep apnea. And that means it's time to take a much closer look. Okay, so once there's a suspicion, the real diagnostic work begins. But here's what's interesting. It doesn't start with some high-tech machine or a fancy test. It starts with a conversation. Your story, what doctors call the clinical history, is literally the foundation for this entire process. This right here is the heart of what's known as clinical reasoning. No single symptom, no single sign, no single test result is going to give you the whole answer. You have to think of your doctor as a kind of detective. They're collecting all of the available evidence and then carefully weighing each and every piece to figure out the most likely diagnosis. So, to weigh that evidence properly, doctors use 2 really important concepts: sensitivity and specificity. Okay, think of sensitivity like casting a really wide net. A sign with high sensitivity, like snoring, is great at catching pretty much everyone who might have sleep apnea. Specificity, on the other hand, is more like a spotlight. A sign that's highly specific, like choking in your sleep, is way better at zeroing in on the people who almost certainly do have the disorder. For example, regular snoring has a really high sensitivity. We're talking up to 90%. But its specificity is pretty low. Why? Well, because lots of people snore who don't have sleep apnea, right? But something like nocturnal choking, that's less sensitive but way more specific. Doctors will also look for physical clues, like a high BMI, a large neck size, and crowding in the back of your throat, all of which really increase the odds of having OSA. So after gathering your story and looking for those physical clues, the next step is to get some objective data. But for a lot of people, this doesn't mean an overnight stay in a lab anymore. In fact, home sleep tests are becoming a super common and much more convenient option. Now, there's a really clear logic to who gets a home test. It all starts with an evaluation by a sleep specialist. If they think you have a high chance of having moderate to severe OSA and you don't have any other major health issues going on, a home test is a fantastic option. But, and this is really important, if that home test comes back negative, but you're still having symptoms, then the next step is that more comprehensive in-lab study. Home tests are definitely convenient, but there are trade-offs. They don't measure your brain waves, so they can't tell what stage of sleep you're in. And because of that, they can sometimes underestimate just how severe your sleep apnea is. They're also really only designed for OSA, so they can't diagnose other sleep disorders. So for the most definitive answers, or, when the picture is just a bit more complicated, that's when we turn to the gold standard of sleep diagnostics, the overnight in-lab sleep study. This test is called a polysomnogram, or PSG for short. And this thing is the whole shebang. It's a super comprehensive exam that records everything: your brain waves to see all your sleep stages, your heart rate, your breathing, your blood oxygen levels, even the movements of your eyes and legs. It captures a massive amount of data to create a truly complete picture of your night. This quote from the source material just sums it up perfectly. The PSG is, without a doubt, the most powerful tool we have for diagnosing sleep disorders. But all that data is incredibly complex. It really takes a highly trained sleep specialist to interpret the results and understand what it all actually means for a patient. So what's the main number that they're looking for from all this data? It's called the apnea-hypopnea index, or AHI. It's actually a pretty simple average. How many times every hour do you either totally stop breathing, that's an apnea, or have a period of really shallow breathing, that's a hypopnea? For a long, long time, the magic number has been 5. An AHI greater than 5 events an hour is often the cutoff that's used to diagnose obstructive sleep apnea. But remember what we said? It's a puzzle, and a single number is never the whole story. And this is exactly why context is everything. An AHI over 5 doesn't guarantee that you're going to feel sleepy or have any other symptoms. In fact, one huge study found that a pretty significant chunk of people who technically met the AHI criteria for sleep apnea reported no daytime sleepiness at all. This just goes to show you why doctors have to connect the test data back to what the patient is actually experiencing. All right, so after gathering the story, the physical signs, and all the test results, it is finally time to put all the pieces of that puzzle together and form the final diagnosis. This table does a great job of summing it all up. The path to a diagnosis depends entirely on what your main complaint is. So if it's snoring and paused breathing, you're looking at your history, questionnaires, and either a home or in-lab test. If it's trouble sleeping, like insomnia, it's more about your history and keeping detailed sleep diaries. For a weird sleep schedule, maybe they'll use a little wrist-worn emotion sensor. And for something like restless leg syndrome, it's all about your story and some specific blood tests. It's all about the right tool for the job. So the main thing to take away from all of this is that a sleep diagnosis is never, ever just about one number on a lab report. It's a thoughtful, careful integration of everything: your unique story, a physical exam, and test results that are interpreted by an expert who really understands the full context. And that leaves us with a final question for you to think about. Look, we all feel tired sometimes, but now that you understand how doctors actually investigate sleep, you can ask yourself a much more informed question. Is your sleepiness just fatigue from a long week, or could it be a clue to a deeper puzzle, one that, if you solve it, could completely change how you feel every single day? Thank you for watching the Sleep to Dream Analytics Explainer video. We hope you sleep well and dream easy.